Roz, from your perspective, what do you see a diagnosis, how do you see a diagnosis like MS impacting couples in their relationships?
I think for most people, a diagnosis of MS comes as a fairly major shock and a change. And so if you look at couples who have a history together, who have an established pattern in their life, a rhythm to their life and to their relationships, this is an unexpected intrusion that both people have to figure out a place for. They have to figure out how it's going to meld into their ongoing life. And I think it can create some real challenges in various areas of life. We talk a lot about intimacy and how MS can affect intimacy in a couple. But usually when we say the word intimacy these days, everybody immediately thinks sex. And I think sex is an important part of relationships, but intimacy is really a much broader, more complex concept than that. And if you think about what makes a strong, healthy, intimate relationship, sure, sex is part of that, but the ability to communicate openly and comfortably with a feeling of trust, that your partner can listen to what you say, can respond to what you have to say, a feeling of mutual trust, that this is a safe relationship in which I can express my feelings, my concerns. I think in a comfortable, intimate relationship, people also have shared expectations. Couples tend to dream about their future and they have a picture of what life is going to be like, so they have that shared expectation. They also have a mutual concern that they want what's best for their partner. So suddenly there's this diagnosis of MS, and there can be a huge shift because only one of the people in the couple is actually experiencing those symptoms, is actually having to sort of own the diagnosis, but two people have to deal with what it's going to mean. And nobody said, in sickness and in health, I take you to be my, with any expectation that there's going to be something like a chronic illness in there. So that means that both people have to react to this news, have to figure out how they're going to deal with it. What's tricky about that is no two people have the same coping style. No two people react to stress in exactly the same way. No two people use exactly the same tools. So you get this news, and one person wants to rush out and read everything about MS. They want to talk about it. They want to learn about it. They're really into mastering this new challenge, and the other person might be saying, "Whoa, I can't even begin to think about this. This is too much information. It's too much stress for me. Can we just talk about something else? Let's go bowling or whatever." And those coping styles can really clash because it's very easy to misinterpret somebody's different coping style as not caring. Oh, my partner doesn't want to talk about this because he or she doesn't care what's happening to me. So that can really affect that feeling of closeness and partnership and intimacy in a couple. So for me, from my perspective, being able to communicate about what's going on is sort of the key, the linchpin, for couples to maintain their connectedness and their closeness even in the face of this kind of intrusion.
So let's talk a little bit about communication. What suggestions, what recommendations do you have for individuals to strengthen that communication?
I think that there are a few things that get in the way of comfortable communication, starting with some people find it easier to talk than others. Almost in any couple, one's more of a communicator than the other is. But in addition to that, I think there's some other challenges that come along with this diagnosis. Unless people have really good, solid information about MS, they don't really know what to say or how to talk about it. This is still this big stranger that just came into their lives, and they don't have the vocabulary to talk about it. They don't know what the important issues are. So that can force people to just not talk about it very well. Because, as I mentioned before, people have different coping styles, that can also interfere with communication because they don't deal with the same issues at the same time. So one person's focusing on one aspect of the problem while somebody else is focusing on a different aspect of the problem. I think also what happens is that people stop communicating because they're afraid of hurting one another. So the person with MS is very, very concerned about what this is going to mean for their health, for their future, for their ability to do things that are important to them. Meanwhile, the partner's worrying about, oh my God, what's going to happen? I'm going to lose my partner. I'm going to have to take on so many more responsibilities. I'm going to have to support everybody, and I'm going to have to take care of the kids, and I'm. So each person's worrying about his or her own life and how the disease is going to impact them. So they worry that they'll sound selfish if they talk to each other about their concerns, or they worry that they'll hurt the other person's feelings by bringing up their concerns. So MS becomes like the big elephant in the room with nobody feeling comfortable to talk about it. When people can't communicate and talk easily, they feel more emotionally distant. That means they can't plan and problem solve as well together. They can't support each other as well. They don't feel as sexually intimate because there's this distance created by not being able to communicate. So my recommendations to people are to start by learning what they're dealing with. Get a good education about MS. I can't emphasize enough how important it is for people to be knowledgeable. That will help them know better what MS is all about. It will give them the vocabulary they need to talk about it with each other. And they need to acknowledge to each other that they know that this is going to impact both people in the couple, not just the person who has the MS, and that both people are going to have worries and fears and concerns, and that it's a safe place to get that out on the table. If people have difficulty jump-starting that conversation because it's just too stressful or too difficult, this is a wonderful time to sit down with a counselor or a family therapist who's got some experience in chronic illness, because that person can help facilitate those early difficult conversations that may feel unsafe